Donetsk is on fire, but Ukrainian drones are radically changing the course of the war. Trump issued a new ultimatum to Putin, but in the Kremlin they basically told him to get lost. And India is ready to give up Russian oil. Ukraine bombed a railway junction in the Rostov region. The movement of many trains has been paralyzed, and the Russians deliberately struck a correctional colony in Zaporizhzhia with aerial bombs. There are many casualties. The cyberattack on Aeroflot happened thanks to a director who hadn't changed passwords for years. Russian tourists are shocked by results in North Korea. They are watched even in the changing rooms. Hello, my name is Anastasia Dmitry, and right now we'll talk about the main news. But first, like this video if you support Ukraine and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to our channel so we don't lose each other on YouTube. 17 dead and more than 40 wounded. Russians attacked the Zaporizhzhia region at night and Russian terrorists hit a correctional colony. As a result of the enemy attack, there was significant destruction. The headquarters, the quarantine section, and the dining facility were completely destroyed. According to preliminary information, the enemy hit the colony with high explosive aerial bombs. Overnight, the Zaporizhzhia district was shelled by Russia 8 times. Meanwhile, in Kamyansk, in the Dnipropetrovsk region, a missile strike on the city hospital killed 3 people. Among them was a 23-year-old pregnant woman. It is known that she was in her 7th month of pregnancy. It is also known that as a result of the attack, the maternity ward and the hospital department were among those damaged. Just yesterday, we reported that Trump does not believe in Russia's willingness or ability to negotiate an end to the war. US Secretary of State Mark Ruby said that the president's patience is running out. I think he is becoming increasingly disappointed despite good cooperation with Putin and their phone conversations. This is leading nowhere. It's time to act. And he made it clear that he is losing patience and is no longer willing to wait for the Russian side to put an end to the war. So this was confirmed by Donald Trump himself. And it has come to the point where the US president is preparing to shorten the 50-day deadline he gave Russia to reach a peace agreement. Putin now has 10 to 12 days. I will announce a new deadline, somewhere between 10 and 12 days. There is no reason to wait. During these 50 days, I wanted to be generous, but we simply haven't seen any progress. Besides, Trump probably better to sit down for this, no longer sees any point in talking to Putin. I don't want to use the word glee. All I know is that we had good conversations, let's say 3 times. It seemed like we were going to have a ceasefire, maybe even peace. Putin shared this idea, and suddenly, rockets are flying at Kyiv and other cities. I say, what is this even supposed to be? There is no reason to wait. If you know the answer, why wait? Finally, Trump also doubts whether Putin respects him. When journalists asked him this question, Trump avoided answering. Do you still feel that Putin respects you? I thought we would be able to come to an agreement, and maybe it will still happen, but the process has already dragged on for too long, so I am disappointed. But let's get back to what Trump announced. 10 days? Foreign analysts are all saying the same thing. Putin has finally run out of time. Yes, perhaps these conclusions are premature, but still. The Telegraph columnist Soumya Romani believes that Putin's bet on Trump's blind loyalty did not pay off. But Putin's determination to criticize Trump's bluff is a dangerous miscalculation. It seems he assumed that Trump would end military support for Ukraine after taking office and hand Russia a blank check for further aggression. But these assumptions turned out to be wrong. Trump has now identified Russia as the sole obstacle to peace in Ukraine and is developing a tough containment policy. But not without skepticism. CNN reports that Russia still shows no willingness to make concessions. The Kremlin consistently rules out the possibility of ending the war in Ukraine until it achieves its maximalist goals. These include gaining control over vast swathes of annexed, yet-to-be-conquered Ukrainian territory, and imposing strict military and foreign policy restrictions. For post-war Ukraine, which essentially subjugates Kyiv to Moscow's will, there is also no talk of Kremlin fear, although I would venture to suggest that everything will change as soon as the US imposes sanctions. These will be sanctions and possibly secondary tariffs. How did Russia react to Trump's statement? In their usual manner, with threats and the conviction that Russia is strong and can withstand anything. Here's what Dmitry Medvedev said. Trump is playing a game of ultimatums with Russia. Whether it's 50 days or 10, he should remember two things. Russia is not Israel and not even Iran. Every new ultimatum is a threat and a step toward war. Not between Russia and Ukraine, but within his own country. Don't follow the path of Sleepy Joe. Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov also responded to the new ultimatum. He stated that despite Trump's statement, Russia will continue the war to protect its interests. And why am I not surprised? As you can see, in the Kremlin, everything is stable, but that's for now. Who knows what Trump has in mind? If Trump actually hits Russian oil with sanctions, India might turn away from Moscow and the Kremlin's budget will take a hit. Reuters journalists write that the threat of secondary sanctions from Trump is quite real and could seriously impact Russia's finances. India is currently the largest buyer of Russian oil, and right now the country is engaged in difficult trade negotiations with the US. Most likely, it won't want to escalate tensions and will prefer other suppliers. Even China, while remaining Moscow's main partner, will be able to negotiate even lower prices, which will lead to a drop in the Kremlin's export revenues. In addition, journalist Rostov emphasizes that oil and gas duties provide up to half of Russia's budget, and the loss of part of this revenue will become painful. Meanwhile, the Persian Gulf countries, with their significant oil reserves and production capabilities, will be able to fairly quickly and efficiently compensate for any potential oil market deficit that might arise if Russian supplies were to significantly decrease or be disrupted. Russian military planes, in particular, already often don't fly as a direct consequence of persistent attacks by Ukrainian drones, and now, regrettably, they are also experiencing considerable operational problems and difficulties due to their own strategic blunders and inherent stupidity. Belarusian and Ukrainian hackers attacked the servers of Russia's main airline, Aeroflot. It will take at least 6 months to restore them. But here's the main point. Aeroflot was hacked because its director hadn't changed his password for 3 years, but let's go through everything step by step. On the 28th of July, a hacker group announced that, together with the Cyber Partisans group, they had attacked Aeroflot. The cyber attack was prepared for an entire year, and it was definitely worth it.
We managed to obtain and extract the complete set of flight history databases, compromise all critical corporate systems, and gain control over employees' personal computers, including those of top management. We copied data from surveillance servers, including audio recordings of phone conversations and intercepted communications. We extracted data from personnel monitoring and control systems. We gained access to 122 hypervisors, 43 SWOT virtualization installations, about 100 ILO interfaces for server management, and 4 Proxmox clusters. As a result of these actions, around 7,000 servers, both physical and virtual, were destroyed. All these resources are now either inaccessible or destroyed. Restoration will likely require tens of millions of dollars. The damage is strategic.
And what does Aeroflot have now? Another transportation collapse. Dozens of flights have been delayed or cancelled. Calm music plays. And perhaps all of this happened because Russia's main state airline was using Windows from 2003, or even older. And yes, the passwords.
The successful breach was largely possible because some company employees neglect basic password security. For example, Aeroflot CEO, Serhiy Alex, hadn't changed his password since 2022. They use Windows XP and 2003 on their network, which led to the compromise of their entire infrastructure.
Even Russian media themselves say that eliminating the consequences of this attack will require between $10 and $50 million. And it will take at least half a year. But it seems to us that Russia won't have time to restore Aeroflot before it has to deal with the aftermath of another hacker attack.
Our operation is a direct message to the FSB, North Carolina CK, RT, Solar, and other so-called cyber defenders. You are incapable of protecting even your own key infrastructures.
Take note, the mentioned RT Solar is a developer of cybersecurity systems. By mentioning this solar security, the hackers might be hinting that traps have already been set and could be triggered at any moment. And just take a look at who is on the firm's client list. Rostov is Russia's main state-owned company in the field of armaments and special equipment. UDK UFA Engine Building Association manufactures aircraft engines for military planes. Severnoye Design Bureau designs warships for the Russian Navy. GMCNIR is engaged in the development of nuclear reactors and fuel. Zaporizhzhia produces power equipment for nuclear power plants and military industrial facilities. NPK Techmash manufactures ammunition and artillery systems. Kalashnikov Concern, a manufacturer of small arms and UAVs. NPP Gamam certifies software for Russia's state security. The Central Archive of Rosatom stores strategic documentation related to the nuclear sector. Rosatom controls nuclear energy and weapons in Russia. So I suspect that the attack on Aeroflot was just a trial run. And things are only going to get more interesting, so get your popcorn ready. Last night, Ukrainian drones launched a massive attack on the occupiers in Donetsk. I don't know exactly where. Preliminary reports say the drones targeted a railway junction and a power station. The occupiers are keeping quiet about the hits, but the consequences speak for themselves. Half the city was left without power. There were explosions at night in Salsk, Rostov region as well. There was a hit on the railway infrastructure and a fuel storage facility there. Just look at how well those tankers are burning. Because of the drone attack, at least 9 trains were delayed. At night, the railway and the Russian resource base in the Rostov region and the city of Salsk were attacked. There is a logistics hub there for transferring resources, fuel, ammunition, and other cargo. To the Donetsk front, as well as south, toward the temporarily occupied Crimea and Zaporizhzhia region. It is known that a traction substation was attacked in the Oriol region during the night. The situation at the front remains consistently difficult. The enemy continues to press and is making advances. As analysts from Deep State write, Russia is seeing successes in the Donetsk region. The enemy is making advances in the Kostiantynivka direction, as reported by a soldier with the call sign Alex. In the Kostiantynivka direction, the enemy has made progress up to the settlement of Yekaterinivka. They tried to enter from the direction of Toretsk and Shcherbinivka, but all of them were successfully eliminated. However, this is in a certain way a worrying sign for the situation in this direction, especially in the area of the reservoir. According to the soldier Stanislav Bunyatov, there are few positive forecasts for the Zaporizhzhia direction as well. Judging by the enemy's maneuvers and advances, very weak units are currently holding the defense. While things were relatively calm, some forces were being redeployed to stabilize other sectors. This had its negative consequences. The guys who are now holding this direction say that the main reason for the destabilization was the withdrawal of an effective unit to the Sumy direction. It was replaced by a territorial defense brigade. The Pokrovsk direction remains the hottest. In the past 24 hours, Putin's army carried out 57 assault actions on this section of the front. In the Pokrovsk direction, our defenders stopped 57 assault actions by the aggressor in the areas of the following settlements: Pupov Yarma, Yaknova, Ekonomicheskaya, Razina, Lisovka, Chunisina, Zvereva, Kotlina, Udakhnaya, Novaya Nikolaevka, Orekova, Zeleny Kut, and Dakhnaya. But Ukrainians are managing to hold back the enemy's assaults. They not only repel enemy attacks, but also penetrate behind enemy lines. A group of fighters from the 425th Skala Regiment carried out such an operation. Our forces set up an ambush for the enemy in the Pokrovsk district and eliminated a large group
of Russians, representing a substantial and significant segment of the overall population. However, it is absolutely crucial to acknowledge and understand that
every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
This success does not change the fact that Pokrovsk is effectively in a semi-encirclement. The Russian army is trying to bypass the city from different directions and partially encircle it. And right now, there isn't much point in directly storming the city. The Russians have already learned what happens when you assault cities head-on. Despite all the manpower they currently have, they simply won't be able to repeat the kind of local assaults that happened in Mariupol or Bakhmut. That's why they're trying to partially encircle the city. And in order to achieve their goal, the enemy has once again started using armored vehicles in this direction. According to the aforementioned Bunyatov, the enemy is once again using tanks in assaults on the Pokrovsk direction. On the Pokrovsk direction, the bastards have gradually started sending out turtles for assaults together with motorcycles. The tank serves as a distraction for our strike drones, while the motorcycles rush toward the position. There are some results here and there, but in most cases the assaults are costly, especially when our guys destroy them. All of this is still 2 kilometers away from the line of contact. The use of tanks is also being reported on the Siversk direction. And returning to the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Sumy region, the liberation of Kondratov and the continued Ukrainian assaults in the Sumy direction are not to the Russians' liking. And according to the military, they are trying to retake Kondratovka from the Kursk region. I want to thank our defense forces and urge you to support our troops. Our defenders are doing incredible things. And besides, I know they are watching us, so write them some warm words of support in the comments. I wish I could say that Russians aren't allowed into any resort in the world, and that's why they're going on vacation to the DPRK, but no, they're going to North Korea as part of the very close cooperation between the dictators Putin and Kim Jong-un. Remember we talked about the North Korean resort? In the DPRK, it is presented as a step toward a new era of tourism, and it was personally inaugurated by Kim Jong-un. To comment on this, the tourism potential of North Korea, I won't. It's all clear enough as it is, so let's get back to the Russians. The first 13 Russian tourists visited the Vonsan Kalma resort. And do you know what Russians say after visiting this paradise? They were constantly being watched, although Russian blogger Daria Zubkova says that it's just a form of care.
The fact that you're accompanied everywhere, yes, that's true. So even there on the beach, someone would walk with us, yes, but it didn't look like some kind of convoy. It looked more like a sweet gesture of care. They walk with you if you want, they'll chat with you. If you want, they'll just walk behind you. So they explain it by saying they're worried you might get lost or something like that.
Here's something interesting. Sending an email from North Korea costs $2.5, and tourists were also asked to bring tea, coffee, and sugar with them for their vacation. There are no fruits at the trendy new resort either, but the Russians like the food.
They took us to various restaurants, both in the resort area and in Pyongyang. They were always trying to impress us with their cuisine, with different kinds of food. They really tried to accommodate all our interests.
By the way, the Russians didn't get there quite as planned, but they did make it to Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea.
Thanks to Sergei Lavrov, the North Korean government paid for an entire train just for us, 13 tourists, which took us there and back. So this train waited for us the entire 4 days while we were on vacation and then took us back.
Now, flying to Korea is no longer a problem for Russians. Flying to Korea is now easy for Russians since Russia has launched direct flights from Khabarovsk. The only thing is the plane will fly just once a month. We don't know whether it's at their own expense, if there are actually Russians going, or if it's being pushed by the authorities. But for Russian citizens, a vacation trip will cost about $2. Well, in my opinion, there are better alternatives. Although, again, I hope that soon Kandar will become the only vacation spot available to Russians. Well, and also Iran and Afghanistan. Putin's security detail walks around with an FPV interceptor. This was reported by radio technology specialist Sergei Filimonov. To be honest, I personally don't fully understand what the point is. And again, in my opinion, at the very least, it's funny. And as for how much this could actually help during a raid, when it comes to drones, that's also questionable. In general, there's a reason people say that fear makes things look bigger than they are. He killed 4 people and then took his own life. Reuters journalists report that a shooting occurred in an office building in Manhattan, New York, resulting in the deaths of 4 people, including a police officer. It is also known that the attacker, 27-year-old Shane Tamura from Las Vegas, took his own life. According to police, Tamura suffered from mental illnesses and arrived in New York a few days before the attack. The shooter's motives are still unknown, but CNN journalists have voiced some speculations regarding Tamura's motives. According to CNN, documents found by police on Tamura's body provide grounds to believe that he had grievances against the work of the National Football League, whose headquarters are located in the skyscraper. In addition, the building also houses the offices of several major financial companies, including Blackstone and KPMG. In particular, he was dissatisfied with their approach to the problem of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a brain disease associated with head injuries and whose symptoms are similar to Alzheimer's disease. Yes, it is often found in professional American football players. Studies have shown that repeated blows to the head, even without concussions, can lead to the development of CTE. According to CNN, Tamura played American football in his youth. According to the publication, he left a suicide note in which he mentions the football player Terry Long, who suffered from CTE, took his own life and promises to follow his example. The Security Service of Ukraine prevented a contract killing of the commander of the 108th Separate Battalion of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in Uvkaidavens, Serhiy Filimonov. According to case materials, the assassination attempt was being prepared by the FSB. To carry out the crime, the Russian Special Service recruited residents of the Dnipropetrovsk region under the guise of working for the SBU. The Security Service of Ukraine says that agent operations under a false flag are a relatively new tactic for the Russian Special Service. During recruitment conversations, FSB representatives pose as SBU officers and assign tasks to agents supposedly in the interests of Ukraine. In fact, it was exactly this kind of bait that caught a Ukrainian and combat veteran from Kamyansk who was convinced that on the orders of the SBU, he was supposed to neutralize a spotter working for Russia, not a Ukrainian military commander. According to the investigation, a representative of the Russian Special Service, posing as an employee of the Security Service of Ukraine, called the man on one of the social networks. During the conversation, she told him that the online store where he had previously ordered medical supplies was allegedly funding Russian troops. She used this fabricated information to accuse the Ukrainian of treason and inform him that a criminal case had supposedly been opened against him. In addition, FSB representatives sent the man a fake summons for questioning at the SBU. After that, he was offered what appeared to be cooperation with the service in exchange for closing the criminal case. To this end, the individual was sent an application form for joining the SBU and was instructed to come to Kyiv. Upon arriving in Kyiv, the recruited individual was tasked with renting an apartment in a residential area, in a complex where, according to the FSB, a Ukrainian military commander lived, whom they planned to eliminate and begin surveillance of his car, Serhiy Filimonov. At the same time, the FSB officer portrayed the Ukrainian military officer as a traitor, allegedly directing strikes on Kyiv. After one of the massive missile strikes on the capital, the handler tried to convince the subject that the person he was surveilling was responsible for it. The FSB handler gave the recruited man the coordinates of a cache on the outskirts of Kyiv, where automatic weapons were hidden. After receiving the Kalashnikov rifle, the man continued his surveillance and then received instructions to eliminate the Ukrainian soldier. SBU operatives detained the recruit as he was leaving the house with a loaded weapon. During the search, his mobile phone was seized, which he had used to correspond with his FSB handler. Under the procedural guidance of the Prosecutor General's office, the detainee was informed of suspicion under Article 263 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. Illegal possession of weapons and ammunition. The commander of the 108th Separate Battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in Vovkodovenche, Serhiy Filimonov, has already responded to the attempted assassination. He thanked the Security Service of Ukraine and promised to share more details later. Today, the FSB and all its supporters really wanted to see me dead. But thanks to the clear and professional work of the Security Service of Ukraine, the Russians once again failed. I am sincerely grateful to the head of the Security Service of Ukraine, Vasyl Malyuk, and the entire team for their prompt intervention. The details of the case will come in time. Investigative actions are ongoing. The Security Service of Ukraine states that they do not hire people over the phone, do not offer to carry out illegal actions, and do not assign questionable tasks. Starting from the new academic year, the Czech Republic is cancelling support for Ukrainian children in schools. In the Czech Republic, from September 2025, funding for Ukrainian-speaking assistance for Ukrainian students will be discontinued. More than 190 schools will lose crucial support that help children adapt to their studies. Instead of personalized assistance, only limited language training will remain, which does not take individual needs into account and will create difficulties for newly arrived families. The Czech Ministry of Education officially confirmed this information to journalists and explained the reasons for this decision. The reason is budget constraints and the reallocation of funds towards basic financing for non-teaching staff. The only remaining form of support will be language courses with limited access. Please like this video to support what we do. Be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss future episodes. See you soon!